Hi everyone, I'm Arti from Swydo, and today we have with us PPC expert Hannah Zora Strong. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself? What do you do? Where are you based?
Yeah, so I'm a Google Ads and LinkedIn Ads specialist. My expertise is really working with clients that have a local customer base, whether that's e-commerce or lead gen, brand awareness or footfall goals. But yeah, so I work across a different variety of sectors. I've been an ads manager for the last 11 years, so lots of experience, and I'm based up in Newcastle.
Beautiful. Okay, so Hannah, you are an agency founder. So what's the biggest day-to-day challenge in running local campaigns for clients that you come across while managing your agency?
I think a lot of clients want to replicate like if they've got like one business set up, they want to franchise that or have multiple locations running the similar campaigns. And
Hmm.
sometimes it's not a case of rinse and repeat. You can't just copy and paste what works for one city might not work for another city. What works for one service might not work for another. Um, so I guess to bring that question to life a bit, when I was working with an opticians group, they had 50 different practices and quite a small ads budget to manage all of those. So we really doubled down on the 20 that were struggling the most with volume. And we launched a series of campaigns across the top 20 priority locations and then worked out what worked for some cities and didn't work for others, and how the demographics changed per location as well. So depending on kind of population density, depending on demographics, yeah, the campaign structure had to change depending on whereabouts the campaign was. So we had like an inner city London campaign, very competitive, very pricey cost per clicks, um, very dense population, obviously. So we found that there was a lot of that was great for young families location because it was in the city centre.
Hmm.
Whereas in the wilds of Northumberland, we found that we weren't getting the traction. Search volume just wasn't there because the branch was in a really small market town. So we actually had to expand the radius there to try and capture the demand from wider locations because people were travelling further to reach that branch. So it was really about, yes, there's some blanket assumptions that we can make, but then each campaign will still have its own learnings, and you have to just go with those learnings per campaign. So I think business owners just hope it's a copy and paste job, but yeah,
Right.
it needs to be tailored once the campaigns have been benchmarked.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, there are a plethora of aspects, like there's demographics, there's like et cetera, et cetera. So what is that one base step that remains constant that you never skip when it comes to local campaigns?
Um, Making sure your Google business profile is linked to your ads account is the absolute number one. So a lot of people think, with PPC, it's plug and play, off you go, when actually we are reliant on your good local SEO, that you do
Mhm.
have your business profile set up, it is optimized, you have got good quality photos, you have got your opening times updated, you have got your reviews pulled in. Google reviews are brilliant for that. So as long as you've got one manager with all of the locations tagged underneath within
Mhm.
your local business profile, when you link
Right.
that to ads, it brings all the data in. So we can see how many store visits have been driven by ads, which is
Hmm.
great for clients that have multiple stores and that also have um, enough data, obviously enough anonymized data.
Right.
So we've struggled with clients that are kind of on trading estates and in low traffic volume, like physical foot traffic.
Hmm.
It's much easier for that store visit um, metric to come in to kick in once if you're in a location like a high street where it's going to have high footfall. So that's another challenge to overcome.
Right. So I was just going through your website and your LinkedIn, and you mentioned something like you handle budgets from 2K to 20K. So there's like a range of clients that you have in your portfolio. So when it comes to clients with smaller budgets, how do you handle that while still showing them real results? What's your approach to working with smaller budgets?
I always say we don't want to try and spread ourselves too thin. We don't want to do too much too quickly. So if I'm
Hmm.
starting with a new business that might have a smaller budget, and then we want to see what works, and then invest there, and then scale it up. I always say we can either, and if they've got multiple locations doing multiple services, I always say we can either start with one location and advertise multiple services, and then we can
Hmm.
see which service works best for that location. Or we can start with one service in multiple locations and then see where that, that service works best. Because, like with the opticians example, they
Hmm.
also did eye tests. They also did, a variety of different tests, and they had like kids and adults. So there was still lots and lots to test, even within one location. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'd say like one geo with multiple services or one service with multiple geos is probably the way to start safely and then grow from there.
Right. And what's your approach towards local service ads? Do you think it's a must-have, or do you recommend them only for certain niches?
Well, wherever they are available, definitely run them.
Hmm.
Um, it's just it's becoming quite inconsistent which
Hmm.
local services are available in which countries. I know they're doing like city specific ones now, so there's the separate services ads available in London versus the rest of the UK. I think it's to stay on top of what's available. Um, I'd say to run them because ultimately Google are going to show a mix of the local service ad format and search ads. It's
Hmm.
better to run both. It's better to run the local service ads if there's available because they often occupy the top slot. And you get like the lovely Google guaranteed badge, and you pay for the lead as opposed to the click. So yeah, it's got lots of benefits. It's just
Hmm.
my clients have had a challenging time getting the volume through, and there's only so much you can do to increase the CPA you're willing to pay, and also expand your radius because if you don't want to work outside a region or a radius, then there's only so much you can do. But to those clients, I just say, keep doing the good stuff of optimizing your business profile because, as I say, the new any new photos you add in, the more reviews you have, it's all gonna stand you in better stead to like rank in that local services ads positions. So there's still optimization to do. It's just less manual.
Right. And do you think certain niches work better with local service ads, or what's your take been on that?
I always
Spec.
say start with the with if you've got like a host of services, start with the ones that have the highest either highest contract value, like average order value, or contract value, or the highest internal conversion rate. Because it's no good saying, oh yeah, I'll pay £10 per lead to get them through to your business, and then
Hmm.
actually only 1 in 10 becomes a customer, then you've effectively paid £100 cost per client then. And if that's not cost effective based on the average order value or like the average contract value, then it's not really worth doing. So I'd definitely say look at your internal conversion rate, look at the average order value that you get from per client, and then work backwards to then set a target cost per
Hmm.
lead. And if you find that you're not getting anything, it might be because your target cost per lead is too low, um, the market is really saturated and too competitive, and that you should try and promote another service that's maybe more niche or that's you can charge more for.
Right. And when it comes to measuring store visits and offline conversions, how do you do it without drowning in tons of data?
Sometimes it's the opposite problem, as I mentioned. It's sometimes a case of if the client only has one store, but they want to track footfall, we can still set up a performance max campaign to optimize for store visits.
Hmm.
because obviously the Google Business Profile is linked to the account. But um, if they're not on the high street or a high footfall area, it can be a challenge to for that store tracking to kick in. And Google are
Hmm.
quite aloof with the amount of data that they need. They haven't said you must have at least two stores or you must have at least 1,000 visits per month to the store. There's no guideline. It just says you don't qualify yet, and all of a sudden, overnight, it will. So there's no guideline by Google to say
Hmm.
when you'll have enough data is going to kick in is a bit of a challenge. In terms of reporting for the clients that have got loads of stores and loads of data, the majority of my clients still have the target cost per lead or cost per sale target. So store visits are nice to have, but the site is transactional. Like you can book an appointment and then they will obviously visit, but we're taking that transaction, that online conversion as the measure of success as opposed to store visits, because you presume once someone's booked an appointment, they will then attend that appointment. So we don't want to use that store visit conversion as a measure of success because then we'd have to go tracking. So I think it's useful to have, like I'll mention it in reporting and give an overview of, hey, we've had these 10 stores and this is how many impressions that store has had, or this is how many store visits Google's tracked from the ad click. But it's still always the website conversion transaction or appointment booking that's the bread and butter of what we're optimizing for.
Hmm. And when it comes to targeting strategies, which are the specific ones that you swear by for local markets?
Usually target CPA if it's a lead gen business.
Hmm.
Um, or if it's ecom, obviously max conversion value or target ROAS. But I guess the challenge we have with, I know I've talked a lot about lead gen, so I'll just give ecom some airtime. A lot of my ecom clients have physical store or a couple, but they obviously
Hmm.
sell to UK wide. So we'll generally do a mix of campaigns that are performance max, shopping, to drive the sale from anywhere in the UK. But then
Hmm.
we'll also overlay if they're running like a store only promotion or if they're running a exclusive sale event for like new season launch, or
Hmm.
if yeah, there's like an in-store reason for someone to get in touch, then we'll actually do like a ring fence display campaign around their store. So again, that'll depend on the how densely the population is. So if it's like, again, city or a market town where there's a shop on the high street, we'll run a display campaign, run demand gen campaigns around that store location to say like, hey, come in to for Prosecco and Nibbles for 30% off on this date, sign up here. And then they can sign up to the newsletter and apply for their invite basically to the event. So we're
Hmm.
not expecting um, direct sales
Hmm.
from that running that display or demand gen campaign, but
Yeah.
it does increase the brand awareness. And obviously we've still got that kind of hard conversion of signing up to the invite essentially. So we are still tracking that, but it's on a cost per application
Right.
or cost per sign up basis.
Right. So how do you find the sweet spot between brand building and direct lead generation for local clients? Because I'm assuming when they first sign up, they also want to see traction in terms of money. So how do you convince them to like play the long game while still brand building and leads will come in due time?
Yeah. It's I try and bring them back to the customer journey and trying to say like the brand building will come, but obviously the pressure that I think every advertiser has, whether you're on Facebook or Google or any platform, is that there's pressure or an expectation from the client to say, you've spent your time, you've spent our money, we need to see a direct return immediately or like as quickly as possible. And like, there's only so much we can say as advertisers, like it's a bullet. But what I'd say is I start with the tactics and the ad formats and the strategies that are going to generate income first. So whether that's leads for a sales business or for or revenue for an ecom business. I'll try and get the campaign to a place where it's meeting the minimum levels of profitability and then scaling that up first before we look further up the customer journey. Because if we can capture the demand that already exists to drive that revenue or drive that lead, then eventually that gives us more wiggle room and more trust from the client and more budget to play with to do the more kind of creative or funnel stuff. Because often the budget will be signed off by senior management. I'll report to the marketing manager. Obviously, they want both. They want the brand building and the revenue generation. But it's
Right.
only when we've got the trust and we've run the campaign for a couple of quarters where we know that the revenue part of the account is working as hard for us as possible. They might say,
Mhm.
oh, right, we can now use 10% or 5% of the budget to do the more creative, visual, brand building type activity. But
Mhm.
it's about setting that expectation that, again, we wouldn't expect that demand gen or that display campaign to
Mhm.
drive heaps and heaps of new customers. But we can use metrics like the view through conversions, click assisted conversions, impression assisted conversions column to kind of say someone who saw this ad then converted on the website. So we can say that it's played a part in the journey, but it just wasn't a click. It wasn't um, a yeah a direct conversion as a result of seeing this ad. But it all supports. But that's the beauty of PPC that I don't think you get with some other channels. You can't say Facebook's great because you can say this impression then led to this sale. Um, but you don't get that with many other channels.
Right. And when it comes to reporting these results to your clients, what is your frequency and your go-to approach? How are you tracking those metrics and how frequently do you report and keep things transparent?
Most clients get a monthly report.
Hmm.
Um, some clients will have a weekly report, but they care more about like a quick top line of what the results are, a couple of sentences, and they're more bothered about the actions that I've undertaken that week and what I need from them
Hmm.
and my next steps. So
Right.
for those that have a weekly report, because they're reporting upwards in their marketing meetings, they care more about the detail of what I'm working on. It's uh, it's that sort of insight as opposed to the hard numbers of it.
Hmm.
Um, but for my clients that have got a monthly report, it's the same structure but on a broader scale. I will have an overview of the campaign performance that month, and then um, a rundown of everything that I've done that month because I time track. That's one of some of the things that I took forward from the agencies when I was working there. So like every time I make a change in ads, I'll write down what I've done and why. So when it comes to the end of the month, I can just pull up a big list of everything I've done that month. And then again, what I need from the client and what the plan is for next month. So everybody's clear what's going to happen based on performance. I think quite often it can be difficult to tell the client up front all the things you're going to be working on that quarter because PPC changes so much, and the whole point of optimizing the campaign is that you test and learn what works.
Right.
So yes, we can have one strategy and say we're trying to retain existing customers, or we're trying to acquire new customers, or we're trying to hit this revenue goal. I can be working to the same strategy for the 12 months. But in terms of putting 3 month plans together, I started to do that and like ages ago. And then the client doesn't need to know that level of detail. It ended up kind of being more like my to-do list. And then by the time I got to month three, everything that I'd thought I was going to do, I don't need to do because the campaign results have resulted in something else, and it kind of had to backtrack. So I don't think the client experience was great from that because it looked like I was changing my tune when actually I was just going with what the data was saying, which is much better. So I was like, I'm just going to save myself a job and not do a 3 month plan. I'll just I'll just do a month plan and then see what the data says.
How do you stay ahead of these platform updates and keep clients happy at the same time? Because, like you said, it's constantly changing.
I have a very strong, nerdy LinkedIn network. So I don't have to. see many new updates. I subscribe to 3 or 4 weekly newsletters from
Mhm.
all the best minds in the industry who will recap new things that they've seen in the interface, and people kind of get to see a new thing, send it to them, and then I get like we get the weekly recap of what's going on. Podcasts as well. So there's about
Mhm.
4 or 5 paid search podcasts that I follow on Spotify, and then whenever there's a
Mhm.
new something comes out, I'll choose whether to tune into that. And then yeah, logging on to LinkedIn a couple of times a week, my feed will be flooded with, have you seen this latest announcement from Google? What do you think of this? It polls, opinions, shares.
Right.
So yeah, it's very much a community effort to keep everybody on top of what's going on. Clients don't necessarily they don't care about the nitty gritty of like a new ad format in the same way that I will be like buzzing about it. I think they're more bothered about how it impacts them, and more
Right.
often than not, it's 80% of the results come from 20% of the work. Um,
Right.
and I think a lot of the time when all of these like new features and new ad formats and new updates come out,
Mhm.
you panic that it's
Yeah.
gonna change the fundamentals, change the foundations of how you work, when actually the same thought process is the same logic that I would apply to a campaign a year ago will still be true today. The execution might be slightly different, the features available will be slightly different, but the thought
Mhm.
process, the bidding strategy will still be the same. And I think all the kind of the new features, it's just like the sprinkles on top. It's not usually, apart from the shift from when Performance Max was launched and the demise of smart shopping. I think that's an exception to the rule where it kind of shook everyone. Um, but usually it's just noise. It's new things to test, but I don't want to say to the client, hey, let's move 40% of your budget over to try this new thing because it looks really cool. I'm still looking after their money in their best interest at the end of the day. So I don't want to be dazzled by some new feature when
Oh.
actually it might be worth 5% of a budget test,
Mhm.
not like completely reshifting how we work for the sake of jumping on a new bandwagon. But it's
Right.
easy to get swept up in shiny new things.
But the core is important. Everything else, like you said, is just sprinklers on the top.
Yeah.
Talking about your favorite podcast and newsletter recommendations, could you give us your favorites for our audience so they can also tune into it?
Yeah. Fred Valleys from Optimizer has a good one. He
Mhm.
has guests on his, and they're usually like an hour plus. So you need to be like in the zone on a walk, like ready to absorb the absolute like the data that's going to get thrown at you.
Right.
Um, Jeremy Young does a quicker, lighter one. So if you've got like his are usually 10 to 15 minutes, and that's more
Hmm.
like latest updates, like, oh, so this feature's available. So it's more of like a summary of the stuff that you'd see in the weekly newsletters of like, this is coming up, or this has been launched in beta in the US. What do we think? Um, and then PPC Mastery is good as well. Obviously, they Forward Miles, they have a course, they have like their whole community there as well. And Jill Saskin Gales, she's great. She has a couple of different podcasts. Inside Google Ads is the main one where she'll kind of talk about a feature, some examples of how she's used it with her clients. She likes to bring in a lot of real life examples, so that's a good one. And then she'll finish with a little teaser to say like, with clients had this quandary or this problem, how would you fix it? And then people would suggest things like would kind of email in to say
Hmm.
how they would fix that problem, and then that's answered at the start of the next podcast, so it just feels a bit more of like that continuation. So
Right.
um yeah, there's a load, and then a lot of those creators are obviously run on YouTube as well if people prefer to digest content visually. I'm
Hmm.
a audio person. I'm like,
Listener.
go for a walk, get a podcast on, love that. But yeah, everyone's different.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested uh, in these speakers and experts. Okay. So, wrapping up, second last question to you. What's one major shift in local marketing that agencies need to pay attention right now?
Um, I think the opportunity of local services ads is huge.
Hmm.
A lot of agencies haven't adopted it, I think, because it's usually for the more smaller budget clients. So I think for agencies, when they're used to working with bigger budgets, like the local handyman, the local roofer, the local gardener, they're
Hmm.
not bothered about working with them on a small scale. So that's why agencies, I don't think, have had as much experience with local services as from what I know in talking to them compared to like search and shopping and all the kind of traditional ad formats in the interface. I think if Google moved the local services ads setup into the ads interface, it would get a lot more pickup. I don't know why they haven't started there, but it is what it is. Um, I think, yeah, it's just an untapped resource, but I guess it's whatever fits your client really.
Hmm.
But I'd always recommend it for sole traders, one-man bands, tradespeople who just want a simpler setup when you're not like overwhelmed by the ads interface because I live and breathe it every day. It's my happy place, it's my comfort zone. But I also understand that when people see it, they are horrified. So yeah, the interface for local services ads is a lot easier on the eye and has 6 sections. So it's easier, it's not as easy to it's not easy to get lost in there.
All right. Okay. I have like a 5 minute quick rapid fire that I do with all the experts I've been speaking to. So this will go very quick. Okay. If you had to pick one metric to measure success, what would it be?
Sales. It's literally one word answer. Would say sales leads.
No, you can
Uh,
give me a sentence like,
oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it always have to be bringing it back to true value. The joy of PPC is that you can, in the main, track uh, sales value from each click. Um, and with high intent keywords, it's just the fastest way. If a marketer's got a good website, good conversion rates, the fastest way to scale it.
Right. Mobile or desktop first?
Um, Mobile. A lot of my conversions still happen on desktop, but mobile is still king.
Okay. One thing you wish you had known when you first started your agency.
Um, I think I work by myself. There's only me, and I think there was an expectation that I would have to do everything, and think an expectation that if things were going well, that I would scale it because that's what business owners are expected to do. Um,
Hmm.
and I think I felt external pressure to take on staff or train people up or partner with people or
Hmm.
lean on, take on PPC execs and kind of scale up and stuff. But actually, I just thought, nah, I just want it to be me. The clients are used to me, and I'm happy being a team of one and
Hmm.
knowing the clients are only getting my expertise and nothing less. So I think I wish I hadn't got sidetracked by thinking that I need to scale because that's what you're supposed to do, and to just
Hmm.
know that I wanted to stay as a happy, less burnout team of one.
Right. That's beautiful. Okay. Um, one quick fix for slow local campaigns.
One quick fix.
Hmm.
Check your location settings. It's an oldie but a goldie. But I still see it go so wrong so many times. Yeah, making sure that your campaign's on presence as opposed to presence and interest is a big one. Um, and on the flip side, if things are going well and you're wondering where to expand to next, like if you do cover the UK, the first place I would look is in GA4. because even if your
Mm-hmm.
ads account is super targeted and you've only got that data for your one region, obviously GA4 will have data from everywhere in the world. So if you can pinpoint other cities and other counties from GA4 where your conversion rate's good, that seems like
Mm-hmm.
the next best place to launch your ads.
Perfect. Email follow-up or retargeting? Pick one for local leads.
Retargeting. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
All
love a good
right.
visual, me.
Okay. That was all from my end. Thank you so much for joining us and for these brilliant insights. And for our audience who want to reach out, know more about what you do, where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn mainly at linkedin.com/in/Hannah-Strong-PPC, and also on my website, zoramarketing.co.uk.
Beautiful. I will link all of that to the description box as well. Thank you so much, Hannah. It was lovely speaking to you, and I'm so excited to put this live.
Thanks, Artie.